In Wilmhurst, a rumor had always floated about a secretive annual gathering, a reunion not listed on any school calendar and unknown to the living residents. It was whispered to be held at the abandoned Wilkins High, where corridors that once echoed with laughter and chatter had fallen silent years ago. I, an amateur YouTuber always chasing shadows for chilling content, decided to infiltrate this mysterious event. My subscribers were craving something darker, and I was ready to deliver. It was a foggy evening when I arrived at the dilapidated school, the air thick with mist that seemed to whisper secrets of its own. My camera was securely strapped to my chest, the red recording light a beacon in the murky twilight. The main entrance was chained, but an old service door at the back creaked open at my touch, an invitation into the unknown. The interior was cloaked in darkness, save for the eerie glow of emergency exit signs. Their faint red light barely touched the edges of the faded murals and cracked trophy cases lining the halls. As I ventured deeper, the sound of distant music led me to the gymnasium. The door groaned on its hinges as I pushed it open, and the sight before me froze me in my tracks. A crowd of people milled about, their faces blurred and indistinct like figures in an old, overexposed photograph. They wore outdated clothing, styles from decades past, and moved with a sluggish, dreamlike quality. I kept my distance, blending into the shadows as I captured this surreal assembly on camera. The music was a scratchy recording of a swing band, and some couples danced slowly, their movements out of sync with the tune. Their feet barely seemed to touch the decaying wood floor. A cold chill ran down my spine as I realized none of their eyes showed any sign of life. They were hollow, like abandoned nests in barren trees. As I panned the camera around, my heart thudded painfully against my ribs. Near the bleachers, a solitary figure watched the dancers. Unlike the others, his eyes were sharp and aware, locking onto mine with an intensity that felt like a physical force. He began to move toward me, his face twisting into a grin that was too wide, too malicious. Fear gripped me, and I stumbled backward, almost dropping my camera. I fled through the dark corridors, the echo of my footsteps a thunderous roar in my ears. Behind me, I could hear the stranger's steps quickening, a relentless pursuit that seemed to stretch the very halls of the school. I dove into a classroom and barricaded the door with an old teacher's desk, panting heavily. Peering out the dusty window, I could see the figure pause outside the door, his shadow stretching unnaturally long across the floor. He tilted his head as if listening for my breath against the glass. Then, with a shudder-inducing smile, he turned and walked away. The music from the gymnasium faded into a haunting silence that seemed to seep into the walls. With my heart still racing, I whispered into the camera, "I'll be back next year. We need to find out who they are, who he is." I knew this was just the beginning of something far more sinister. The camera continued to record as I waited for dawn, the weight of unseen eyes lingering in the stale air. The morning after my harrowing experience at Wilkins High, I returned to my small, cluttered apartment, my mind reeling with more questions than answers. Despite my fear, curiosity burned brighter, pushing me toward the unknown. I spent hours reviewing the footage, pausing and replaying each frame that captured the spectral attendees and their ghostly revelry. The man who had pursued me was particularly fascinating. His menacing grin and the uncanny awareness in his eyes set him apart from the rest. I named him the Watcher in my notes. As the sun dipped below the horizon the following evening, I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to go back sooner than planned. There was something about the Watcher's intentional movements towards me that suggested he knew more about my intrusion than the others. My subscribers were already hooked, flooding the comments with theories and encouragement to dig deeper. Armed with a stronger flashlight and a newly acquired digital recorder for capturing any EVPs, I set out once more. The night was eerily calm as I approached the school again. The building loomed larger in the darkness, as if it had expanded with secrets during the day. My flashlight beam seemed to be swallowed by the darkness as I entered through the same service door, which stood slightly ajar, as though waiting for my return. I made my way directly to the gymnasium, half expecting to see the spectral gathering once more. But the room was empty. The silence was oppressive, the air thick with the smell of mildew and decay. My flashlight flickered as I scanned the room, landing on a figure standing in the exact spot where I last saw the Watcher. But it wasn't him, it was a woman, her features sharp, her eyes piercingly clear against her translucent skin. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, her voice a mix of a warning and a weary resignation. "Why?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. "What is this place?" "This is where memories linger, where the forgotten refuse to fade," she replied, her gaze not leaving mine. "You've seen him, haven't you? The one who watches?" "Yes," I answered, steadying my camera on her. "Who is he?" Her face softened, a sorrow etching deeper into her features. "He's the keeper of this place, bound to the shadows of what was never resolved, what never could be." "Why does he chase me?" I pressed, my hand gripping the recorder. "He senses your life, your connection to the outside. He envies it, craves it. And he's not the only one. There are others here, less aware, but just as trapped." The air grew colder, a chill that seemed to seep into my bones. How do I help them? How do I protect myself? To protect yourself, you must understand his story, their stories. Only then can you hope to free them and yourself. With that, she faded into the darkness, leaving me with more questions than before. I left the gymnasium quickly, the weight of her words heavy on my mind. Outside, the night had deepened into an inky blackness that made the school appear even more forbidding. I vowed to return, to uncover the stories of those trapped within its walls. As I drove away, my camera still recording, I spoke to my viewers. "We're just getting started here. There's a lot more to this place than just ghostly dances and a menacing watcher. We're going to uncover the truth together." The promise hung in the air, a commitment to the shadows waiting in the silence of Wilkins High. Weeks passed since my last visit to Wilkins High, and the footage I'd gathered fueled endless nights of research and a growing obsession with the school's history. I pored over old newspaper clippings, local archives, and even interviewed elderly locals who faintly remembered the school before it was abandoned. Each piece of history hinted at unresolved stories tied to the school, but the specifics remained elusive, shrouded in a thick fog of forgotten memories and time-worn secrets. Driven by a deepening need to understand, I decided it was time for another visit, this time under the veil of the new moon's darkness. My equipment was more sophisticated now, including infrared cameras and a sound-enhanced recording device. The online community around my series had exploded, with viewers offering theories ranging from cursed grounds to a hidden gateway between realms. As I approached the school, an unnatural silence blanketed the area. The building seemed to recognize my presence, its broken windows gaping like dark, watching eyes. This time, the service door resisted slightly before giving way with a mournful creak. My heart pounded with a mix of dread and anticipation. Inside, I made my way directly to the gymnasium. The air was colder than before, the silence deeper. I set up my equipment, the infrared cameras casting an eerie glow that painted the room in shades of green and black. I waited. Minutes stretched into hours, and just as I began to doubt, the faint sound of music whispered through the air, a ghostly echo of the past. The dancers appeared gradually, materializing from the shadows, their movements slow and deliberate. I scanned the room with my camera, searching for the watcher. He wasn't among them this time. Instead, as the music swelled to a haunting crescendo, a new figure emerged from the opposite side of the gym. It was a young man, his features sharply defined and more solid than the others, with an intensity in his eyes that immediately captured my focus. "You," he said, his voice clear and commanding, unlike the whispers of the others. "You've returned." "Yes," I replied, steadying my camera on him. "I need to know what happened here. Why are you all still here?" His eyes locked on mine, a storm of emotions swirling within. "Because of me," he admitted, his voice heavy with sorrow. "I was the last principal of this school. A tragedy happened, one that I tried to cover up to protect the school's reputation. A student disappeared. It was my fault, and my silence trapped us here in this loop of regret and unfinished business." The air around us thickened as he stepped closer. "But you've started to break the cycle. Your presence, your quest for truth, it's changing the energy here. We've been waiting for someone like you." My hands trembled as I absorbed his words. The implications were massive, not just for my series, but for the souls trapped here. "What can I do to help?" I asked, the weight of responsibility pressing down on me. "Tell our story, all of it. Only through acknowledgement and remembrance can we find peace. You must bring to light what was hidden, make the world remember Wilkins High and the souls lost here." As dawn approached, the figures began to fade, including the former principal. He gave me a nod of gratitude before disappearing, leaving me alone with my thoughts and my cameras. I packed up my equipment, a plan forming in my mind. This was no longer just about capturing ghost stories for views. I had a mission now to bring peace to these trapped spirits through exposure and truth. As I drove away from the now silent school, the first light of dawn breaking across the horizon, I felt a strange peace mixed with determination. My YouTube series was about to take a new turn, one that could potentially free an entire school's worth of lost souls. The twist had been revealed, and the real work was just beginning. The story of Wilkins High was far from over. It was entering its most crucial chapter. Thank you for listening to my channel.